What's happening? Good Thursday morning to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, it is much appreciated. Doug Kyde's latest in the Boston Herald. He spoke with scouts and executives on how they view Drake Maye's ceiling if Maye is thrust into a starting role in year one. And there were a lot of interesting quotes in this story. Again, this is Kyde with the scout on Drake Maye if Maye starts in year one. A third AFC East scout had the highest ceiling of all for Maye, believing his ceiling is that of, quote, a difference maker that gets the Patriots back into the playoff conversation, unquote. Another quote, a second AFC East scout who had Maye ranked as the number 2 quarterback behind Caleb Williams is optimistic. Quote, there's going to be some growing pains, but if it comes together, he'll be good. Unquote. The same scout believes Maye is a quarterback the team can win because of, not just with. There's a big difference between saying a quarterback is a quarterback that you can win because of instead of with. Because of is Patrick Mahomes. Because of is Josh Allen. Any top 5 or 6 quarterback in the league, you might even be able to extend that to top 8. Any one of those guys are quarterbacks that you win because of. Chips are down, plays have to be made. That's the guy to do it. A quarterback that you could win with was more of a Mac Jones, dependent on everything else. The supporting cast, the coaching staff, the scheme, the offensive line, all of those things. Somebody like a Brock Purdy. So when a scout says they believe a quarterback is a guy who you can win because of and not just with, that means that scout believes that quarterback can be a top 6, 7, 8 guy in the league. So that means an awful lot. It's the difference between a Josh Allen and maybe a Kirk Cousins. There's a big difference. You know, when we think about the impact of those kinds of quarterbacks. So 2 scouts talking very, very highly of Drake Maye to Doug Kyde. I would also say that these 2 scouts that I just referenced in this Boston Herald story, and you can go check out the full story by Kyde there at the Herald, but I would also say the 2 scouts that I just quoted are both from the AFC East. And I don't think scouts within the same division are all about praising what another team has done. It's very odd, right? It's odd that an AFC East scout would praise Drake Maye and his ability to start in year one and what the expectations could be or should be. Now, this could also be the okie doke from these AFC East scouts setting up Drake Maye to fail and setting up the expectations to be way too high. But when AFC East scouts come out and they give their evaluation of Drake Maye and they praise the young man, that makes me feel even better. It makes me feel even more bullish on the evaluations of one Maye. Let's get back to some more quotes. Again, Doug Kyde spoke to a number of executives and scouts in the NFL about Drake Maye and the expectations if he should start in year one. One AFC East scout believed that Trevor Lawrence's rookie season was a good place to set Maye's ceiling. An AFC North scout also set expectations for Maye around Lawrence's rookie season. Quote, I think he rides ups and downs for sure, but ultimately ends up having a solid year where you see a lot of good potential. Somewhere between Lawrence in 21 and Tua Tagovailoa in 2022. Unquote. A senior AFC North executive believes Maye will be solid as a rookie, but the supporting cast is the biggest thing that'll hold them back, he said. Now, back to the difference maker quote from the same scout. Realistically, however, the scout said that while the Patriots addressed many of their needs this offseason, they still need to fix even more to, quote, get to a real place where they allow him to truly be successful as a year one starter, unquote. So ipso facto, these scouts believe in Drake Maye's talent. These scouts believe that if you started Maye in year number 1, he is not going to sink. They believe that at worst, he could give you a Trevor Lawrence-like rookie season. We'll get into some of those numbers in just a bit, but somewhere between Lawrence in 21 and Tua in 22. So the scouts and the executives in this story, they believe in Drake Maye, and they believe in him so much that they look at him as a bona fide year one starter and somebody that could hold his own weight in the league earlier than many of us think that he can. But they also look at the supporting cast and they say the supporting cast isn't great. It's not good enough just yet. So, for example, that AFC East scout that spoke with Doug Kide that said, hey, they can be in the playoff conversation, and Maye is a guy that you can win because of and not just with. He's also admitting he's not going to hit that ceiling. Maye's not going to hit that ceiling this year if this is the roster he's got to work with. He doesn't have enough to get to that ceiling in year one. Now, I'll get to Trevor Lawrence in a rookie year and Tua Tagovailoa in 2022 to give you some kind of idea about the numbers. But first, let's jump to a super chat. You can send your super chats to me during the podcast. You jump to the front of the line with your question and your comment. After the huddle, ATH, do you play fantasy football? Drafted May, round 1-9, Baker at 4-10, and claimed Bell off waivers in my dynasty league. Hope one of them hits. I do play fantasy football. I've played fantasy football since like the late 90s. I think I was one of the first people to play fantasy football. We had a league. A buddy of mine, his brother ran the league. It was a bunch of us. I think there were 12 of us. And I'm going to sound like the old guy standing in the front lawn yelling at the clouds. But we would actually do the draft. We would have, pen in hand, a notebook. I would keep track of every pick. A pick was made, I'd write it down. That's how I would do it. I would separate my notebook paper 3 ways, so I'd have the rounds separated. That's what I would do. This was before the internet was, all over the place and the connections were great and you can easily access all sorts of statistics. This was back in the day, man. Back in the day. And so what we used to do, again, I'm going to sound like the old guy. We used to get the newspaper. Yeah. I get the newspaper on Monday. It was the best thing about it. I'd get the sports section on Monday. I'd open it up and I'd find out what everybody did. Because, of course, you could watch ESPN and you could watch, the highlight shows and all of that. You can do that, but they didn't show the stats of everybody. They showed the stats of the guys that really balled out. So if you had a top receiver, you had a pretty good idea on what that guy did that day. But if you had somebody's number 2 receiver, maybe you're stuck in a bind with injuries. You had somebody's number 3 receiver. You're combing through the paper on Monday morning, the sports section, and you're looking at the box scores from those games. And what I would do is I'd go into those box scores. I'd find my guys and I would circle them. I'd write their stats down. I'd figure out their points. So I knew where my team stood going into Monday Night Football. Those were the days. So needless to say, I am a very big fantasy football guy. As a matter of fact, I broke in on the air in Boston on 98.5 The Sports Hub. I was hosting, along with Mike Lockhart, on Sunday mornings. I was hosting the fantasy football show before the Patriots pregame. That goes back to 2013 or so. No, that's 2010, 2011. Those 2 years. So, yeah, I'm a big fantasy football guy. Drake Maye is a good pick for a dynasty league if you believe in his potential. Baker's a good, solid, steady hand, right? I don't think he's your starting quarterback, but if he's somebody who's your backup, I only play in 1 league right now. I used to play in 4, and it was just way too much. But my league I play in right now is a 2-quarterback league, which is interesting. You start 2 quarterbacks every week. So that puts a lot of pressure on you. By the way, this past year, I made it to the Super Bowl. So, did pretty well. Thanks for the super chat, ATH. All right, back to the idea of Drake Maye and what these scouts and executives had to say. If you're wondering what Trevor Lawrence did during his rookie season, he completed less than 60% of his passes, 59.6%. He had 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. That's not very good. Breaking news, that's not very good. When you look at Tua Tagovailoa in 2022, Tua completed almost 65% of his passes, 25 touchdowns, and 8 picks. So the scout, one of the scouts that is quoted in this story, says if Drake Maye starts year 1, he thinks Maye could settle somewhere in between Lawrence's rookie season in 2021 and what Tua did in 2022. So you're looking at somewhere between, 61 and 64% completion percentage. You're looking at probably, 18, 19 touchdowns, maybe 10, 11 interceptions, somewhere in that range. But we can sit here and we could talk about stats and expectations. But honestly, what are the two most important things as the rookies head into town today? The rookie minicamp does not begin until officially, I believe, tomorrow, but they are showing up today. They will be in town today. So as Drake Maye comes into town, I'd imagine he's already here. As Maye walks into Gillette Stadium today, as he walks into Foxborough, what are the two most important things for Maye in year one? If he does start, what are the two most important things? The two most important things, nothing to do with stats, health and development. That's what we need to focus on. Patriots fans, that's what we need to truly hone in on for 2024. Does Maye stay healthy and does Maye develop? Does Maye develop throughout the season at practice? So if he's not playing, do we see some of that development? Does he finally get into a game midway through the year, late in the year? How does he look then? If he starts earlier in the season than some of us anticipate him starting, do we see that development from week to week? Is he the same quarterback in week 3 that he is in week 16? Because what you would hope and what we want to see is Maye's development shining through. So he's a much different guy by week 15, 16 than he was in week 4. We can handle the early errors, right? The mistakes, a few bad decisions. If he's going to learn on the job to a certain point, we have to give him the leeway to learn on the job and not burn him down within the first month of the season or within the first 4 games of his season. So the most important factors here are health and development. Much more important than statistics. Does he stay healthy and does he develop? Because if he continues to develop and by the end of the year, he's a better quarterback than he was at the beginning, then we all feel really good going into 2025 because we say they drafted a young guy who was raw. He's the potential guy, right? He's got the potential tag on his chest. They drafted him. We all knew they drafted him, took the big swing, and that he needed to work on certain things and continue to get better. So if he does start early in the season, we have to have reasonable expectations. And the biggest thing to me is grading him week in and week out as far as his development. Do we see little things get better, slowly but surely? So by the end of the year, we say, hey, the footwork is there, the mechanics are there, the decision-making got better. Those are the critical pieces. All right, I'll continue on Drake Maye, and I also want to give you the update on the Patriots front office. Some people losing their minds over titles. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But first, I got to remind you, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. It's what keeps us going. The support system, the community that we build. Every single like means the world. That's how we beat that YouTube algorithm. So if you like what we do here, if you love what we do here, make sure you click on that thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and get notified. That's how we continue to build the numbers and we chug along towards 2024's football season. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple Pods, please take the time out, rate, and review. If Drake Maye starts week 1, that's a great sign. I feel like that's a great sign. Because if Maye, I don't think this staff is going to rush Drake Maye. I don't think Alex Van Pelt and Ben McAdoo and T.C. McCartney and Gerard Mayo and even the front office, Elliott Wolf, I don't think they're interested in rushing him. And as we said last week, when is the right time to start Maye? When he's ready. When he's ready. Simple. If that's week 5, great. If it's week 12, great. If it's not this year and it's 2025, awesome. Just make sure the young man is ready. Don't throw him out there in the deep end if his mechanics are a mess. If you have a firing squad opening up on the offensive line, if it's a 5-alarm fire every snap of the football, don't put the young man out there. You got to make sure your offensive line is solidified. You've got to make sure that his feet are great and his mechanics are really good and he's ready mentally with the playbook and understanding. All of that stuff has to play a role. You don't throw him out there just to throw him out there. So when do you play him? You play him when he's ready. And so if he starts week 1, because again, I think this staff is going to be very cautious with him. If he starts week 1, I believe that means he blew the doors off of people in practices and in the preseason, that his camp was outstanding. he has to have an outstanding camp in preseason to start week 1. Because we know what the plan was for the Patriots from day one of this offseason. They went out, they signed Jacoby Brissett. They signed Brissett for a reason. They signed Brissett because they knew they were drafting a young quarterback, and they understood that they might have to give that quarterback some time before he's ready to play. And so Jacoby Brissett's contract, that agreement makes a lot of sense from 30,000 feet because you're not going to rush Drake Maye. You have Brissett. If you have Brissett for the first month of the season, great. If he's got to play the whole year, that's what happens. So I don't think this staff is going to rush with Brissett as an option, which means, ipso facto, if Maye starts week 1, he blew the doors off of people. His mechanics were there. His footwork was there. And that's a great sign. If Maye is starting week 1, that means he is well ahead of schedule. And we should all be happy about that. We should all look at that and say, he's already exceeding expectations. He's ahead of where they thought he was. He knows the playbook. He understands the concepts. He has chemistry with the receivers, from Kendrick Bourne to KJ Osborne to Polk and Baker. Maybe Tyquan Thornton, anybody else that's going to be out there. Pop Douglas, obviously. That would be a fantastic sign if Maye is starting week 1. It would also mean that the team believes in him. And I'm not talking about the coaching staff. I'm not talking about the front office. I'm talking about his teammates. Jacoby Brissett is a great leader. The guys in that locker room are going to believe in Jacoby because of how he carries himself and because of his resume. He's not a great quarterback. Let's not get it twisted. But guys in the league respect Brissett. He's an NFL quarterback. And he's a good leader. He knows what to say, when to say it. He handles his business professionally. So if Drake Maye leapfrogs Brissett, it's not only telling us that on the field he's ahead of the curve, but it also should tell us that he has proven to his teammates that he's the guy, that the teammates have bought into him. Wolf and Mayo have both underlined leadership, culture. I don't think they're going to throw the young quarterback out there if there are questions from his teammates. I don't think that's going to happen. So if Maye starts week 1, it means very good things on the field, and it also means very good things off the field. If we do want to look, because we've spent a lot of time talking about Maye and the comps, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, if we want a good idea as far as what Josh Allen was his rookie season, remember, Allen came out of Wyoming. His completion percentage was terrible. He was a raw, talented quarterback with a great arm. I'm not telling you that Maye is going to end up being Allen, but there are a lot of similarities between Allen coming out of Wyoming and Maye coming out of UNC. You go back to Josh Allen's rookie year and you look at what he did. He started 11 games. So he was not the starter out of the gates. He started 11 games. So that could be what happens with Maye. Maye could start 11 or 12 games this year. Of course, when Allen was a rookie, it was a 16-game schedule. Now it's a 17-game schedule. So Maye could start 11, 12 games this year. It's exactly what Allen did. So what should the expectations be aside from health and development? If you do want stats, and instead of plopping him in the middle of Lawrence and Tua, maybe you look at what Josh Allen did. And Allen had a bad rookie year. He completed only 52.8% of his passes. That is a shockingly low number. Even worse than some of his numbers at Wyoming. He had 10 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. So if Maye shows the development throughout the year, if he is out there, if he's starting at some point, and he shows that development, and he stays healthy, and he gives you a completion percentage hovering around 60%, 62%, and he's not an utter disaster throwing 30 picks, then you should feel pretty good about that. By the way, Josh Allen, we look at his statistics as a passer, but in his rookie year, he ran for 631 yards in 11 games. He would have ran for 1,000 yards if he played all 16 games. He ran for 631 and scored 8 touchdowns. Here's some great perspective from Doug Kyde. Since 2014, there have been 33 rookie quarterbacks to start at least 8 games. Mac Jones ranks second behind only Dak Prescott among those 33 quarterbacks in passing success rate as a rookie. The aforementioned Allen ranks 6th lowest. So rookie performance is not truly indicative of future success. And that's the ultimate point. You look back at the history since 2014, 33 rookie quarterbacks have started at least 8 games. And what you can learn from all of the information that you gather looking at those quarterbacks is that the rookie season, whether it's bad or it's great, doesn't necessarily tell you how that guy is going to perform moving forward. The league adjusts to him. He has to adjust to the league. A lot of different things happen, right? Coaches change, schemes change, talents change, offensive line changes. That's why I look at it and I say, does Maye stay healthy? And does he continue to develop? If he does, 2 most important things. All right, don't forget to like and subscribe, rate and review. We'll have more Pats talk in a minute, but first, a word from our sponsor. The Nick Cattle Show is brought to you by Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. Warzone has 9 maps on 30-plus acres of land. They've got paintball. You know the deal. They've got airsoft. They've got kid versions of both of those. Something for every age group starting at 6+. You show up, right? Just rock a pair of jeans, throw on a good pair of sneakers, get a long sleeve shirt, walk on into Warzone. They will take care of you. If you're new to the game, don't worry about it. It's very low key. It's casual. The rules they have designed to protect new players. So if you're interested in paintball and airsoft or love paintball and airsoft, maybe you got a kid, you want to throw a birthday party, whatever you want to do, check them out. Warzone Paintball and Airsoft, North Kingston, Rhode Island. Call them at 401-228-6366. That's 401-228-6366. Tell them the Nick Cattle Show sent you. Let's get to a super chat. Vitalix, $10 super chat. Thank you. You think they are actually worried about his long throwing motion as much as his footwork and whatnot? I mean, I don't think so, Vitalix. Most of what we've heard regarding Maye and the mechanics and all of that and what they need to work on mostly is the bottom half. His footwork in the pocket. He's prone to drift at times, which leads him to throwing interceptions. His dropbacks, those kinds of things, right? Just pretty much keeping a rhythm. Does he have a rhythm to his dropbacks? Is he setting that back foot and letting it rip? Are his feet pointed in all sorts of different directions when he's trying to throw the football? I think those things outweigh, the long release, the long throwing motion. We had a story going back about a month and a half ago at this point, I believe, where, quarterback coaches, and I'm not talking about guys in the NFL, but guys that are personal quarterback coaches, one of them said, I'm not really worried about the elongated motion. It's not that bad. His release is not that bad. He's a bigger guy. He's not going to be able to uncork it as quick as others. That was one guy's opinion who works with quarterbacks. But you could look at, Jordan Love and other players that had a little bit of that elongated release, and it gets worked on, it gets ironed out. But I would imagine they would be more concerned about the footwork, because if your footwork is not right, you're just not going to be accurate. The elongated motion is an issue as far as timing and as far as being susceptible to turnovers, because if you have that elongated motion, pass rushers can get to the football. But accuracy is the most important thing. So I start with footwork. If the footwork is there, then the accuracy should be better. I appreciate the super chat. Always appreciate super chats. Help me out a little bit financially. Gets the conversation going. Thank you, Vitalix, for sending that $10 over, and thank you for your question. All right, let's look at the update on the Patriots front office. Burt Breer yesterday posted that the Patriots finished interviews with Brandon Hunt and Samir Suleiman. We talked about those guys yesterday. Most importantly, the Patriots have officially registered the job title. The official title is going to be the Executive Vice President of Player Personnel, the EVP. It is the first official title in 24 years. You go back to Bobby Greer. He was the VP of Player Personnel from 97 to 2000. Belichick, of course, took over at that point. And Belichick never held a title, which is why I find this title stuff hilarious. Some people are still running with the Jonathan Kraft is running football operation storyline. We've gone through this before. I'm not going to drag it out this time around, okay? But if you look at what the team did in the draft, that draft was through and through an Elliott Wolf draft. We went through that why going back, I think it was last week. That was an Elliott Wolf production. That was a Green Bay-like production. Free agency was very Green Bay-like. But this idea of, oh, well, they're not naming the person the general manager, which, could open the door to some shady stuff. Belichick never had a title. So if you're worried about titles and games being played with titles because Jonathan Kraft is really running the operation behind the big curtain like these, excuse me, like the Wizard of Oz. If you're worried about that, Belichick had no title. So they were messing with titles with Belichick. So did Belichick have control? Or was Jonathan Kraft the shady guy behind the scenes making the draft picks? Because if your premise is if somebody's not named the general manager, then something weird could be afoot. Belichick was not named the general manager. So something shady could have been afoot. And really, what do the Patriots have to do at this point to appease these people that want to continue to question whether or not Jonathan is running this? Robert Kraft has publicly said ownership's not making decisions. Gerard Mayo has said it. Elliott Wolf has said it. Greg Bedard, Chris Gasper, Burt Breer, Phil Perry, Tom Curran, and more have all reported that Jonathan Kraft is not in charge of the football decision-making. The draft was an Elliott Wolf operation. What else do they need to do? Do they need like 24/7 surveillance at Gillette Stadium and then release the footage to everybody to prove that Elliott Wolf ran things and that the next person, if it's Wolf or somebody else, is going to run things? Do we need wiretaps at Gillette Stadium to prove that Jonathan Kraft isn't calling the scouts at midnight asking about this third round offensive lineman? Like, what do we need? Do we need the Krafts to sign a public decree in front of cameras in their own blood? Like, what needs to happen? It's been reported by a bunch of people who have been credible. It's ridiculous. The most important thing, and we've discussed this before, the most important thing is who will be the primary football executive. It doesn't matter if that person is named general manager or head of football operations or VP of player personnel. It doesn't matter. What matters is who is considered the primary football executive. That's the number one guy in the front office. That's the number one person. And Burt Breer yesterday posted what the specific responsibilities of the EVP of player personnel are going to be. Here's what Breer tweeted. As far as the structure goes, Gerard Mayo and the new EVP of player personnel will both report to ownership. That is not different than anywhere else. Ownership always gets reported to. Why? Because they write the checks. They own the franchise. When I was a program director in Sacramento, I was not just making, I was not given the keys to negotiate with my co-host that I would eventually hire. I had to update the market manager, who would be, i.e., the ownership in this case. I had to update the market manager on the negotiations. I had to let the market manager know this is what has been offered. This is what he's looking for. This is what my counter is going to be. This is what the relocation expenses are going to be. That's every walk of life. So yes, people report to ownership. It happens in every NFL city. But the EVP of player personnel is expected to have final say. This is the key. The EVP of player personnel is expected to have final say on the 53, as well as oversight on the cap, analytics, etc. It's a very different structure than before. So again, whoever gets put in this spot, and the expectation is it's going to be Elliott Wolf. Wolf is going to be in charge and have final say on the 53-man roster. Wolf is going to have oversight on the salary cap. He's also going to have oversight on analytics and everything else, scouting that happens in the front office. So Burt Breer's report is that whoever gets placed in this position is going to run football operations. And they are going to report to ownership, which is exactly what should happen. Now, I do have a question about Mayo and the EVP both reporting to ownership. I don't get that. If the EVP has the final say, if the EVP is running the ship, then why is Mayo reporting to ownership? Why is he involved? Now, maybe it's just Mayo updating ownership on the players and the approach week to week. If so, that's fine. If it's a coaching thing, that's fine. But I need more from Burt as far as specifics of the reporting by Mayo. Because what you don't want is you don't want Gerard Mayo reporting to ownership and saying, I don't like this guy at corner. We drafted the wrong receiver. And he starts, and I'm not saying this would happen, but this is a hypothetical scenario that could play out. Mayo could go to ownership and throw Wolf under the bus or whoever it is under the bus. And now you have this friction between the head coach and the VP of player personnel. So I like that part of Burt Breer's tweet clarified a little bit. Mayo's role in reporting to ownership. I don't need two guys reporting to ownership as far as personnel. If it's Mayo talking about his coaching staff or whatever, if it's under the umbrella of the coaches, fine. But you don't need two cooks in the kitchen reporting to Jonathan Kraft and Robert Kraft about personnel decisions. You put that on the VP of player personnel or the EVP of player personnel. That's the one thing I would like ironed out a little bit because it could cause issues. Some questions from this, by the way. Would Elliott Wolf change the analytics approach? If Wolf is the guy, is he going to change the analytics department? Because what has been reported is the Patriots do not have a lot of people in that analytics department. They don't have a big staff. Other places, not every other place in the NFL, but other places in the NFL, they have bigger analytics departments than the Patriots. So how much will be invested into analytics by Elliott Wolf or whoever takes this spot? Remember, Wolf's a film guy. So how heavy is he into analytics? Oversight on the cap is interesting. Of course, ownership has to okay every big-time move. No GM, no EVP, no president of football operations, none of those people are going to sign a gigantic contract without talking to ownership beforehand. That's how it works. Just like when you use a number 3 pick on the draft. And by the way, Wolf has told the media, he has said that he spoke to ownership on the day of the draft, and that's when ownership knew that Drake Maye was going to be the quarterback, that was going to be the pick at number 3. But Wolf, of course, still had to go to ownership and say, we're going to go with Drake Maye. He's going to be there and we're picking him. Same thing will happen with big-time contracts. Christian Barmore, Kyle Duggar, Michael Wenu, they don't get those deals until Wolf gets the okay from ownership. That's what happens. Now, ownership can say, yeah, fine, whatever. Like, we're not worried about the budget. You have this amount of money to spend, so spend it as you want. They could also do that. But every decision out of respect to the ownership, every big decision, they're going to be told about. It's not like Jonathan Kraft gets up and looks on Twitter and goes, oh my God, we just signed Christian Barmore to a contract extension. So as far as the oversight on the cap, what I'm wondering is, is this kind of a public statement that we're not going to pinch pennies? Like that the Krafts are not going to be hovering over the front office on how every penny is spent, because some people believe that's what happens. And some people believe that's what happened with Bill Belichick. I don't believe that. I believe Belichick made the decisions, and I believe Belichick spent the money on the players he wanted to spend the money on and would tell the Crafts, this is what we're doing, to keep them aware. But to kind of dispel the idea of the Crafts just sitting in the room slapping the checkbook against the table, maybe this is a sign of, hey, Wolf is going to have oversight on the cap, which means he's going to be making the financial decisions. Also, if Elliot Wolf does get this job, that means the director of scouting job opens up, I would think. Now, they could easily eliminate that job, but if Wolf gets promoted to EVP of player personnel and they decide to keep that director of scouting title within the front office, somebody gets that title. Now, my suspicion, and I've said this a couple times over the last week or so, my suspicion is that there's going to be at least some turnover in the front office. That Wolf has connections across the league, and he's going to want to bring in some of his guys. And as a matter of fact, Hunt, Suleiman, whoever else interviewed for a position, those guys might be brought in as part of Wolf's staff. That would not surprise me. So I think we should anticipate some turnover, and we should anticipate some title changes. One guy I'm looking at is Matt Groh. What happens with Matt Groh? Is Matt Groh gone? Or is Matt Groh's title changed? Because when you look at Matt Groh, it's very interesting. Matt Groh's title is Director of Player Personnel. So you have Groh as the Director of Player Personnel, but you now have registered the title of Executive Vice President of Player Personnel. Does that mean Matt Groh's Director of Player Personnel title is going to get wiped away and they're just going to have the EVP of Player Personnel? And if Matt Groh's title does get wiped away, does that mean Groh gets wiped away? Or does Groh move into what Wolf's title was, the Director of Scouting? And do you have Wolf above Matt Groh, and Matt Groh is the Director of Scouting while Wolf gets the EVP title? I'm going to throw a dart. This is just a guess. Okay, I'm not telling you this is what's going to happen. This is a guess. Elliot Wolf ends up being the EVP of Player Personnel. Pretty much everybody locally feels like that's a fait accompli, that Wolf is going to get this job. And I believe that Wolf will get the job. I don't think you have him draft Drake Maye. I don't think you put him in control of the number 3 pick and free agency during this huge offseason. I don't think you do that. I don't think you allow him to bring in Alonzo Highsmith. I don't think any of that happens unless Wolf is the plan. So I believe Wolf will get this job. He will be the EVP of Player Personnel. I believe Alonzo Highsmith is going to be his number 2 man. So whether that's Highsmith taking Elliot Wolf's old title of Director of Scouting, or it's taking Matt Groh's title as Director of Player Personnel, who reports to the EVP of Player Personnel, Alonzo Highsmith is going to be known as the number 2 guy in this front office. It will be Elliot Wolf at top. Highsmith will be his right-hand man. And I think you will see, again, some turnover, some title changes, and Wolf will be allowed to pick his team, so to speak. And if Wolf wants to keep the guys that are there because he's comfortable with them, then I think he does that. But that's how I feel what all of this leads to. I feel like this all leads to Elliot Wolf, EVP of Player Personnel, Alonzo Highsmith, Director of Scouting, taking Elliot's title that he has currently. And then you have some turnover, some new blood come in. I would not be surprised if Matt Groh is gone. I'm not saying he's going to be gone, but it wouldn't shock me if Groh is no longer in this front office within the next month or two. But we'll see how it all plays out. All right, before we leave you, just want to throw some quick Celtics numbers at you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, help us out here at the Nick Cattle Show. Let's beat that algorithm. Give us that thumbs up, subscribe, rate, and review on Spotify and Apple Pods. Just some Celtics numbers. Couple of Celtics tweets that stood out to me yesterday as we get ready for game 2 tonight against Cleveland. Justin Turpin of EEI, he tweeted this out. The Celtics are 59-7 when making the same number or more threes as their opponents. They're 10-12 when making fewer. They're 59-7 when they make the same amount or more threes in a game. They are 10-12 when making fewer threes than the opposition. 3-point shooting, and this is not just a Celtics thing. I know people think the Celtics are the only team that rely on threes. The entire league relies on threes. 3-point shooting hasn't had more impact on winning in the NBA as it's had this season. It's never had that much impact. You can look at 3-point shooting, the amount of takes, the amount of makes, and they directly correlate to success in the NBA. That's what 2024 is. Shooting. You make more threes than the other team, you're going to win a lot of games. As Missoula says, it's math. You've got to make threes and you've got to defend threes. Game 1, the Celtics were plus 21 at the 3-point line. If they make more threes than Cleveland, Cleveland's going to be in trouble. So for the Celtics, it's create good threes, right? Dribble drives, touch the paint, post-ups, draw doubles, kick them out, ball movement, man movement, create open threes, and make a good portion of the threes while you defend the 3-point line. If you create the right shots and you contest on the other end, and you have good ball pressure and all of those other things we talk about, you have a high likelihood of winning games, especially when you have the talent the Celtics have. So make threes, defend threes, also limit free throws. Stool Greeny tweeted this, and this is not accounting for last night's Knicks-Pacers game. The Celtics in the playoffs so far, number 2 offense, number 3 defense, number 1 net rating, number 2 true shooting percentage. They've been dominant. We'll see if they continue that dominance tonight at TD Garden. All right, that'll do it for the show today. I appreciate you, as always. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're interested, check out the Patreon page, $5 a month, $1.25 a week, bunch of exclusive content over there. Last night, I vented on the Bruins losing game 2 in Florida. Had a venting session on the Patreon page. So if you want to check that out, you can. Again, thank you for joining me. We'll back tomorrow at 11 a.m. sharp. This has been the Nick Gattle Show.